Major Carter walked down the quiet streets of her small, blending seamlessly into the ordinary world she had chosen for herself. To her neighbors, she was just another professional woman, tech consultant, drone instructor, someone who helped local kids discover the thrill of aviation in a safe, playful environment. But beneath that calm exterior lay a life of adrenaline, secrecy, and danger that no one could imagine. 8 years ago, she had been one of the most skilled and decorated fighter pilots in the U.S. Air Force, trusted with missions so classified that even her own family didn't know the details. Her decision to disappear from the public eye hadn't been easy. The Air Force had offered her accolades, medals, and recognition for her skill, but she had walked away after a classified mission went awry. There had been lives lost, secrets compromised, an annoying feeling that the world she inhabited, both in the military and at home, was not entirely safe. Hiding her identity wasn't just a choice, it was a necessity. She traded high-speed, jet engines and the roar of the sky for quiet mornings, small-town coffee shops, and evenings spent watching drones hover over open fields with a dozen local kids eagerly following her instructions. Every day maintained her disguise with meticulous care. She never posted on social media, never mentioned her past, and always deflected questions about her career with vague answers. It had been 8 years of careful routines, morning jogs past the same neighbors, afternoon sessions teaching drone physics, and evenings lost in technical manuals that reminded her of the precision and discipline she had left behind. She kept her flight gear boxed away in a locked cabinet, unopened and untouched, a physical reminder of a world she had abandoned but never truly forgotten. Despite the calm exterior carried a constant tension. Every time she heard the distant roar of a jet in the sky, every time a news headline hinted at military operations overseas, she felt a pang of longing and a flicker of fear. What if someone discovered her location? What if the military called her back? 8 years had dulled her skills slightly, but her instincts, honed through countless missions, never truly left her. She had survived in stealth, in patience, in silence, but she knew the day might come when anonymity would no longer be possible. That day arrived unexpectedly. A single envelope marked with the seal of the Pentagon appeared at her doorstep one crisp autumn morning. The paper was thick, the ink official, and the message succinct yet chilling. "We need you back immediately." Froze, her heart hammering against her. Memories flooded her mind, the roar of the engines, the adrenaline rush of high-speed maneuvers, the tension of life-and-death decisions made in fractions of a second. She had thought she had escaped all of it, that her secret life was buried forever beneath the calm, ordinary life she had built. She carefully examined the letter. It didn't ask politely. It didn't offer an explanation. It simply commanded. Fingers trembled slightly as she ran her hand over the envelope, feeling the weight of the message, the pull of duty that had never left her. She glanced around her quiet street at the neighbors chatting idly, oblivious to the storm that had just arrived on her doorstep. The world she had hidden from for 8 years was calling her back, and she could not ignore it. For the first time in nearly a decade, Carter felt the old fire ignite in her chest, the fire that had once made her a legend in the skis. She was no longer just a quiet civilian in a small town. Somewhere beyond the horizon, her destiny awaited, and the secret life she had kept buried was about to roar back to life. Carter stared at the envelope for a long moment, her mind racing. 8 years of peace, of careful invisibility, were about to be shattered. She had built a life in the shadows, one where her past didn't define her daily existence. And now, with a single piece of official correspondence, the world she had meticulously constructed threatened to vanish. She felt a rush of conflicting emotions, fear, exhilaration, and an undeniable pull toward the life she had left behind. The very thought of returning to a cockpit both thrilled and terrified her. Her civilian life had been deliberately ordinary, almost painfully so, had avoided old friends, skipped reunions, and declined invitations that might bring her military past to light. She had chosen a small town precisely because it offered anonymity, a place where no one would recognize her or ask too many questions. Each morning, she donned the same muted wardrobe, the same calm demeanor, and walked to work without revealing anything extraordinary. But inside, she was always alert, always calculating, always aware of how close the past still lingered. Every news report about military action or air combat made her pulse quicken. Found solace in her drone classes. Each afternoon, she taught local kids the basics of flight, aerodynamics, and navigation. Their enthusiasm was infectious, and she cherished the simplicity of their curiosity. But even in these moments of peace, she couldn't escape her own history. Every precise movement she demonstrated, every tactical explanation she gave, was a subtle echo of the fighter pilot she had once been. The children thought they were learning hobbyist skills, knew she was practicing precision, patience, and spatial awareness, the very skills that had saved lives in theaters far from this quiet town. The letter's arrival forced her to confront a truth she had long avoided. The military could find her at any moment. They had the means, the authority, and now, the intent. She knew that ignoring the summons wasn't a real option, but the idea of returning to a world of classified operations, impossible maneuvers, and life-or-death decisions sent a shiver down her spine. She wrestled with the weight of 8 years of hidden life versus the undeniable calling of the skis. The envelope wasn't just a letter. It was a tether pulling her back to a destiny she had tried to leave behind. Spent the evening preparing mentally. She walked her usual routes, visited her favorite coffee shop, and even fed the stray cats she had befriended over the years. She tried to imagine herself refusing the Pentagon's call, but the thought felt hollow. The sky, the cockpit, the rush of adrenaline, these were parts of her identity she couldn't escape, no matter how carefully she hid. She remembered the missions, the camaraderie, the terrifying exhilaration of flying at supersonic speeds while making split-second decisions that determined life and death. That world had demanded everything, and somehow she had survived. As night fell, stared at the ceiling of her modest apartment. The quiet hum of her drone simulator in the corner reminded her of what she had forsaken. For 8 years, she had remained invisible, balancing anonymity with the thrill of small, controlled flights in miniature skis. Now, the world demanded the full, uncontrolled reality. She knew she had no choice but to return, but the thought of leaving the shadows behind and stepping into global danger once again filled her with both dread and anticipation. By dawn had made her decision. She would return not because she wanted to, but because she was needed. The hidden life of 8 years would end and the skis would reclaim her. The shadows had protected her for a long time, but the world beyond demanded her skills, her courage, and the fighter pilot she could never truly abandon. The next morning, a black SUV pulled up quietly outside Carter's apartment. She had anticipated this moment, yet nothing could fully prepare her for it. The vehicle's tinted windows reflected the early sunlight, hiding the figure inside. A uniformed officer stepped out, crisp, professional, and unyielding in demeanor. His presence alone radiated authority, the kind hadn't faced in years, yet instinctively respected. She approached cautiously, the envelope still clutched in her hand, feeling the weight of destiny pressing against her chest. 8 years of hidden life were about to collide with the life she had once owned. "Major Carter," the officer began, voice firm but not unkind. "Your skills are required immediately. Refusal isn't an option." His breath caught. She had imagined many scenarios in her head over the past 8 years, but none prepared her for this direct confrontation. Memories of high-speed chases in the sky, split-second maneuvers, and missions teetering on the edge of disaster surged back, threatening to overwhelm her. The adrenaline she had long suppressed stirred within her veins, reminding her of who she was, and who the world still believed her to be. Inside the SUV, observed the officer carefully, noting every detail. His badge, the insignia, the faint traces of urgency behind his stoic expression. He handed her a sealed folder containing classified orders, which she examined with a steady hand despite the rapid thrum of her heartbeat. The mission outlined within was both unprecedented and perilous, a volatile threat emerging on foreign soil, one that demanded someone with her exact skill set. As her eyes scanned the details, panic mingled with a thrill she hadn't felt in years. She was needed. The world beyond her quiet life depended on her expertise. The ride to the military facility was silent except for the low hum of the engine. His mind raced with calculations, contingencies, and memories of missions past. The world had changed during her absence. Aircraft were faster, technology smarter, and adversaries more cunning. 8 years of peace had dulled her reflexes slightly, but she reminded herself that instinct never truly left. She pictured herself in the cockpit, hands gripping controls, eyes locked on the horizon, body attuned to every vibration. The fear of the unknown mingled with excitement, the unique cocktail of emotions she had once mastered in life-and-death situations. Arriving at the base was escorted to a restricted briefing room. Holographic maps flickered in dim light, displaying threats across continents. Military personnel moved efficiently, eyes darting, voices hushed but urgent. A younger squad of pilots was assembled, unaware of the legendary figure among them. Could feel their skepticism. She had been gone too long, their knowledge of her limited to whispers and unofficial reports. She realized she would have to prove herself not just to the mission, but to a new generation who hadn't witnessed her expertise firsthand. Sitting at the table opened the folder. Tactical plans, intelligence reports, and schematics spilled across the surface. The threat was unprecedented, highly unpredictable, and time-sensitive. Every decision mattered. Every misstep could cost lives. She studied the information meticulously, running mental simulations with the precision of a surgeon. The officer stood nearby, observing silently, understanding that the moment of truth was arriving. Could return not just to flying, but to commanding, calculating, and surviving under extreme pressure. As the briefing concluded, closed the folder and exhaled slowly. The magnitude of what lay ahead settled in her chest, heavy and unyielding. Fear and anticipation battled for dominance, but she felt a familiar surge, the call of the skis, the rush of duty, and the undeniable knowledge that this was where she belonged. 8 years of hiding had ended. Her life in shadows was over. Dawn would find Major Carter airborne once again, confronting danger with the skill, courage, and precision that had defined her legend. The hangar doors loomed above like a gateway to another world. The sleek fighter jet, polished and ready, gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. Its surface reflected not just the hangar lights but the past 8 years of her life, the adrenaline, the danger, the victories, and the sacrifices. His hands hovered over the canopy, her fingers brushing the cold metal, feeling the hum of dormant power beneath her touch. The cockpit awaited her, a familiar throne of responsibility, danger, and freedom. Every instinct she had suppressed stirred within her, awakened by the mere proximity of the aircraft. Sliding into the seat was enveloped by the familiar scent of fuel and electronics. Her heart raced, not with fear but anticipation. She ran through pre-flight checks with deliberate precision. Switches flicked, dials monitored, systems activated. Every movement was a ritual, every indicator a heartbeat in a symphony of control. Beside her, the young co-pilot watched, awe and skepticism mingling on his face. He had heard rumors of the legendary pilot returning, but witnessing her calm, controlled movements in person brought the stories to life. He didn't yet know the depth of her expertise, nor the sacrifices that had shaped her into a force unlike any other. His mind raced through calculations, simulating maneuvers, risks, and contingencies. The world beyond the hangar had changed. Radar systems were faster, threats more cunning, and enemy tactics more unpredictable. Yet within her, the instincts honed over countless missions stirred with an uncanny precision. Muscle memory took over, her body moving as though the years of absence had never existed. Every flick of her wrist, every adjustment to the throttle, every shift in posture was perfect, born of experience and honed through repetition. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in years, the thrill of the cockpit coursing through her veins. As the engines roared to life, the hangar vibrated under the sheer power of the jet. Senses sharpened, the world became a blur of sound, vibration, and light. With a practiced nod to her co-pilot, she taxied toward the runway, every eye on the ground following her movements. The wind shifted in anticipation, carrying a scent of ozone and opportunity. When the jet lifted into the sky, felt the familiar surge of freedom and power. Clouds rushed past her canopy as if the world itself recognized her return. She was home. The first few minutes were a delicate dance of. She adjusted to the new avionics, the upgraded targeting systems, and the enhanced speed. Her co-pilot communicated via headset, questions and observations flowing, but answered with calm authority, guiding him through every maneuver. The fear of obsolescence faded, replaced by certainty. Her skills had not only survived, they had evolved. The young pilot, witnessing her competence, began to relax, trusting the unseen hand that had once dominated skis and now reclaimed them. His mind wandered briefly to the past, to missions that had cost friends and comrades, to the weight of decisions made at Mach speeds and thousands of feet above the ground. She had hidden from all of it for 8 years, but now, suspended in the sky, she confronted the truth. She had never truly left. The thrill, the fear, the responsibility, they had only been dormant, waiting for this moment. The jet cut through clouds, and Carter felt herself fully alive, every sense attuned, every nerve humming, every instinct alive and razor-sharp. By the time she leveled above the horizon, she knew one thing with absolute clarity. She belonged here. The shadows of her civilian life, the quiet streets, the hidden anonymity, all of it faded beneath the roar of engines and the expanse of sky. 8 years had passed, but the pilot within had never left. Carter was back, and the world above awaited her command. The briefing room smelled of ozone and polished metal, a scent that immediately brought back to her years in active duty. Holographic maps glowed against the dim walls, displaying clusters of red blips, threats moving unpredictably across foreign airspace. Officers shuffled papers, voices hushed but tense, discussing scenarios that could unfold in minutes. Eyes scanned the projections, absorbing every detail with practiced focus. The threat was unlike anything she had faced in years, highly mobile, technologically advanced, and lethal. The Pentagon had called her back, because no one else had the skill or experience to neutralize it. As she sat, a young intelligence officer approached, hesitation clear in his posture. "Major Carter, we've heard the stories, the legend. But things have changed since you left. These adversaries, they adapt faster than anything you've encountered." Didn't flinch. Years of stealth and preparation had sharpened her instincts, and she knew that fear could never overtake precision. She listened carefully, weighing each variable, visualizing patterns, and anticipating every possible threat. The room seemed to hum around her, a tension that would either make or break every decision in the coming hours. Her co-pilot, the young officer who had flown alongside her earlier, leaned in, eyes wide. "Do you think we can handle this?" Gaze met his, steady and unwavering. "We don't have a choice," she replied, "but we can control how we respond." Her words carried authority not just from rank but from experience forged under pressure, risk, and the unforgiving expanse of the sky. The squad listened closely, some skeptical, others awestruck, but all were aware of the weight she carried. The briefing escalated as new intelligence flashed on the screen. The adversary had deployed drones capable of autonomous attacks, highly maneuverable jets, and electronic warfare measures that could blind conventional systems. Every contingency had rehearsed in her mind, had to be recalculated on the spot. She suggested unorthodox maneuvers, angles no one had considered, and strategies that seemed risky but were grounded in precision. Her voice carried confidence, each suggestion backed by simulations she ran internally, predicting outcomes faster than any computer could process. The room leaned in, the tension palpable, knowing the stakes were life and death. The mission demanded not just flying skill but tactical brilliance. Mentally rehearse the sequence: approach, neutralization, extraction, and return. She accounted for wind, enemy movements, timing, and even the mental state of her young co-pilot. Every second would count, every maneuver had to be precise, and mistakes would be fatal. She could almost feel the heat of missiles, the roar of enemy engines, and the urgency pressing on her chest. 8 years of hidden life had brought her here, and now there was no turning back. As the briefing concluded, gathered the squad. Listen carefully. This mission will test everything you know and everything you think you can endure. Follow my lead, trust your instincts, and keep your focus. One mistake and lives will be lost, but executed correctly, we have the chance to neutralize a threat before it escalates. The room fell silent. Every pilot and officer understood the magnitude of her words. Stood, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settle across her shoulders. Outside, the sky stretched infinitely, a challenge and a canvas for the trials ahead. Every glance at the radar reminded her this wasn't just about flying. It was about strategy, precision, courage, and the survival of everyone depending on her judgment. 8 years of shadows had ended. Now the mission and the danger was real, immediate, and unavoidable. She turned toward the exit, every step measured, every heartbeat synchronized with the hum of possibility. Dawn would see her airborne once more, facing a world that had changed while she hid. But Carter was ready. The pilot, the strategist, and the force behind legend had returned, and the sky itself seemed to acknowledge her presence. The roar of the engines filled his helmet as her fighter jet cut through the upper atmosphere. Below, clouds drifted lazily, oblivious to the chaos about to unfold above. Radar blips danced and shifted unpredictably, each one representing an enemy threat capable of annihilating her squad in seconds. Hands gripped the controls with instinctive precision, every movement measured, every calculation instantaneous. 8 years of absence hadn't dulled her instincts. They had lain dormant, sharpened by years of patience, waiting for this exact moment. Now, the moment was here. Her co-pilot's voice crackled through the headset. Multiple bogies inbound. We're outnumbered 3-1. His mind ran through trajectories, angles, and maneuvers in milliseconds. The first wave of drones appeared, small but deadly, buzzing like mechanized hornets. Enemy fighters flanked from the left, missiles locked onto her squadron. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but exhilaration. This was the world she had once mastered, a lethal ballet in the sky where every second counted. Made the first call. Evasive maneuvers, split formations, and countermeasures deployed. Her squad followed, some hesitant, some trusting instinctively in her lead. She twisted the controls, diving toward the clouds while launching flares and chaff to confuse incoming missiles. Time slowed, each second stretched into eternity. The young co-pilot gasped as a drone exploded nearby, debris scattering across the sky. His voice remained calm, guiding him through each maneuver, reassuring, commanding, precise. Panic had no place in the cockpit, only clarity. Suddenly, one of her fellow pilots was hit. His jet spiraled dangerously, smoke trailing behind. Instincts took over completely. She calculated the trajectory of the damaged craft, the position of enemies, and the safest extraction path. A split-second decision could save a life or doom them all. She dove alongside the stricken pilot, issuing instructions while shielding him from enemy fire. Missiles streaked past her canopy, close enough to scorch, but her control was flawless. She had flown like this countless times before, yet every mission carried its own terror, its own uncertainty. The squad regrouped under her guidance, but the enemy was relentless. Advanced drones deployed electronic warfare tactics, jamming radar and confusing targeting systems. Enemy fighters circled with precision, attempting to draw them into a trap. Mind raced. She adapted, using terrain, cloud cover, and unconventional angles to break the enemy's formation. Her young co-pilot followed her lead, slowly gaining confidence. Every maneuver was a calculated risk, every decision critical. Sweat dripped down his face, but her focus never wavered. She was entirely in the zone, a master of aerial chess at supersonic speeds. Minutes felt like hours as led her squad through the gauntlet. The final engagement approached, a high-speed dogfight with precision drones and agile fighters converging simultaneously. She executed a daring maneuver, looping around enemy fire and neutralized the lead drone with perfect timing. Her squad followed suit, systematically dismantling the remaining threats. One by one, the enemy blips vanished from radar. Leveled her jet, exhaling slowly, adrenaline surging through her veins. The mission was far from over, but the immediate danger had passed. As she cruised above the clouds, glanced at her co-pilot, who now looked at her with awe and unspoken respect. Lives had been saved, threats neutralized, and her skills proven once again. 8 years of hiding had not weakened her. They had prepared her for this. The sky was chaotic, unpredictable, and lethal, yet Carter had reclaimed it as her domain. She was alive, victorious, and more aware than ever that this mission was only the beginning. By the time Carter returned to base, exhaustion clung to her muscles, but her mind remained alert. The squad had survived, the mission had succeeded, yet another storm awaited, one that had nothing to do with enemy fire. Whispers had already begun circulating across military channels. Someone had leaked images of the ghost pilot back in action. Within hours, news outlets were flooded with speculation, some calling her a hero, others questioning why she had hidden her identity for 8 years. Had prepared for enemy threats, but she hadn't expected to face public scrutiny this soon. Her co-pilot approached cautiously, eyes wide with awe. I had no idea you were legendary," gave a small, wry smile. "Legends aren't always what people think. Some are just survivors." He nodded, finally understanding why her maneuvers had been flawless, why her presence in the squad had changed the outcome entirely. The squad, once skeptical, now treated her with a mixture of reverence and relief. Could sense the shift. She had returned not just as a pilot, but as a leader, an experienced guide in a world that demanded excellence. Soon was summoned to a secure briefing room. Military brass, intelligence officers, and communications specialists were all present. Cameras had captured her identity, and while the Pentagon had intended to keep her return confidential, the revelation was unavoidable. The officer in charge looked at her with a mix of admiration and concern. "Major Carter, your identity is now public knowledge. The media and military channels are buzzing. How do you wish to proceed?" Exhaled, feeling the weight of reality settle. Privacy, once her greatest shield, had evaporated. As the news spread, reactions were instantaneous and polarizing. Social media erupted with hashtags praising her courage, while conspiracy theorists speculated about why she had disappeared. Military historians debated her career, highlighting her years of anonymous service as proof of exceptional dedication. Interviews were requested, profiles written, and footage of her jet maneuvers analyzed by enthusiasts and critics alike. Felt exposed, yet a sense of validation stirred within her. Her work, long hidden, was finally acknowledged. The world now knew the truth. She had not abandoned her duties, she had merely protected herself and those around her. Even amid public attention, remained focused on her team. She debriefed each pilot, reviewing every maneuver, every decision, and every moment of the engagement. The young co-pilot who had once doubted her now sought her guidance eagerly, absorbing her expertise with reverence. His approach was patient but firm, ensuring that lessons learned in battle were passed on without ego or exaggeration. Her leadership was no longer hidden. It was tangible, visible, and indispensable. The personal cost, however, was immediate. Privacy was gone, and the quiet life she had cultivated for 8 years vanished in an instant. Neighbors recognized her, journalists called, and friends reached out with cautious congratulations. Felt the tension of exposure but also a strange liberation. For 8 years, she had carried a secret that isolated her. Now, though the world knew, she could finally reconcile her dual existence, the civilian and the pilot, the hidden and the revealed. That evening, stood on the tarmac, watching the last light of sunset reflect off the sleek surface of her fighter jet. The roar of engines, once a dangerous thrill, now felt like a bridge between past and present. She knew that her life would never return to the quiet shadows she had cherished, but she had reclaimed something far more enduring: purpose, recognition, and the knowledge that her skills had saved lives when it mattered most. Carter's legend was no longer hidden. It was alive, undeniable, and just beginning to unfold. Carter stood on the edge of the tarmac, the last rays of sunlight glinting off her fighter jet. The world now knew her truth, and she felt the weight of exposure mingled with liberation. 8 years of hiding, of anonymity, had taught her patience and humility, but nothing compared to the clarity she felt in this moment. She was both the quiet civilian who taught children to fly drones and the legendary fighter pilot who had returned to save lives. For the first time in nearly a decade, felt fully whole. In the days following the revelation, embraced her dual identity. The Pentagon had officially reinstated her as a consultant and active mentor for new pilots. Young recruits, once skeptical or oblivious to her existence, now flocked to her guidance. She taught them not only technical skills, but also the lessons that only experience could provide. How to manage fear, make split-second life-and-death decisions, and trust instincts honed over years of trial. She became a bridge between generations, a living testament to courage, precision, and resilience. Yet refused to relinquish her civilian life entirely. She returned to the quiet town she had called home for nearly a decade, continuing her drone classes for children. She saw the same awe in their eyes that she had once seen in her co-pilot, the spark of ambition, curiosity, and courage. Teaching reminded her that legacy wasn't only in headlines or medals, but in the lives she shaped, the confidence she instilled, and the inspiration she left behind. Had found a way to balance both worlds, and in doing so, she realized that her identity was more than one role. It was the sum of all she had endured. Flying remained her sanctuary. Each mission, each practice sortie, reminded her of the exhilaration and responsibility she had once abandoned. Sitting in the cockpit, she no longer felt fear but respect for the machine, for the mission, and for herself. Every maneuver was deliberate, every decision informed by past mistakes and victories. The sky, vast and unyielding, became her canvas. Carter no longer hid from it. She commanded it with authority, grace, and an unwavering understanding of her own capabilities. Public recognition brought its own challenges. Interviews, ceremonies, and media attention tested her boundaries, yet navigated it with the same precision she applied to flying. She remained guarded but not distant, choosing carefully when to reveal personal details. She had learned that the world might admire her skill but could never truly grasp the sacrifices, the solitude, and the calculated risks behind every heroic action. And yet, she accepted it. Visibility, she realized, was part of the legacy she had earned, part of the story that would inspire others long after she left the cockpit. One evening, returned to the tarmac alone. The horizon burned with sunset, painting the sky in fiery oranges and deep purples. She climbed into her jet, feeling the familiar hum of engines beneath her, the thrill coursing through her veins. For 8 years she had hidden in shadows, but now flying was a choice, not an obligation, not a secret, but a reclamation of identity. She banked sharply, cutting through clouds with precision, her heart sinking with the rhythm of the sky. Every maneuver whispered freedom, courage, and the affirmation that she was alive, unrestrained, and exactly who she was meant to be. Carter had returned, not just to the sky but to herself. The hidden pilot was gone, replaced by a woman who had faced danger, secrecy, and exposure and emerged stronger, wiser, and fully realized. Her legacy would endure not in silence, but in every life she touched, every pilot she trained, and every horizon she dared to conquer. The shadows of the past had shaped her, but the sky, limitless and eternal, was hers to command. She was no longer hiding. She was flying free, and nothing could stop her.